Hello students, now we are going to look at the second part of the sound machine. In the last part we had seen up till the portion when Mrs. Saunders had cut a rose and Klausner had heard the shriek of a rose, and then he requested Mrs. Saunders to cut another rose, and then he told her that do you know that such sound comes when a rose is cut, then it screams a lot. She said, no, I certainly didn't know that. He said, no, I didn't know about all these things. It happens to be true, he said. He was breathing rather rapidly, but he was trying to control his excitement. I heard them shrieking. Each time you cut one, I heard the cry of pain. A very high pitched sound, approximately 132,000 vibrations a second. You couldn't possibly have heard it yourself, but I heard it. Did you really, Mr. Klausner? She decided she would make a dash for the house in about 5 seconds. Now he told her that yes, it is true. And the vibrations that were created were 132,000 vibrations a second, and you couldn't hear it, but actually the rose had created such a sound, and I heard it. Now she was like incredible thing was happening in front of her, so she decided that within 5 seconds she will dash to her house, and she said that did you really, Mr. Clausen? You might say, he went on, that a rose bush has no nervous system to feel with, no throat to cry with. You'd be right, it hasn't. Not like ours anyway, but how do you know, Mrs. Saunders? And here he leaned far over the fence and spoke in a fierce whisper. How do you know that a rose bush doesn't feel as much pain when someone cuts its stem in two as you would feel if someone cut your wrist off with a garden shears? How do you know that? It's alive, isn't it? Now he told that you may ask me that a rose bush does not have a nervous system and there are no sensory organs in it and no throat to cry with, then how does it happen? But don't you know, Mrs. Saunders, that he then leaned over the fence and told her in a whisper that if you cut a rose, then its stem in two halves, then it would be like as if you are cutting your wrist with the garden shears. And immediately the sensation occurs in the rose because it's a living thing. Yes, Mr. Clausen, oh yes, and good night. Quickly she turned and ran up the garden to her house. Now she couldn't believe she couldn't take it anymore, and she said, yes, yes, Mr. Clausen, good night and thank you. And then she ran up to her house. Clausen went back to the table. He put on the earphones and stood for a while listening. He could still hear the faint crackling sound and the humming noise of the machine, but nothing more. He bent down and took hold of a small white daisy growing on the lawn. He took it between thumb and forefinger and slowly pulled it upwards and sideways until the stem broke. From the moment that he started pulling to the moment when the stem broke, he distinctly heard in the earphones a faint, high-pitched cry, curiously inanimate. He took another daisy and did it again. Once more he heard the cry, but he wasn't so sure now that it expressed pain. No, it wasn't pain, it was surprise. Or was it? It didn't really express any of the feelings or emotions known to a human being. It was just a cry, a neutral, stony cry, a single emotionless note expressing nothing. It had been the same with the roses. He had been wrong in calling it a cry of pain. A flower probably didn't feel pain. It felt something else which we didn't know about. Something called toin or spurl or plinupment or anything you like. Now he came back to his table where the machine was kept. Then he took hold of a daisy in his garden between the forefinger and the thumb, and then he tried to pull it, give it a twist, and break it from the stem and try to hear the sound. He heard a high pitched cry. That was an inanimate cry. Then again he did with the second daisy, but now this was not a simple cry, it was just a stony type of voice. And it didn't express pain. So there were no feelings or emotions which were known to human being that was in that cry. Now he felt that maybe he must have mistaken while hearing the sound of the rose also It was not a cry, but it was something else. Maybe a rose or a flower doesn't feel any pain, but it felt something else which we didn't know. It can be like spurl or plinacment or something like that when you are just cutting the rose or something. He stood up and removed the earphones. It was getting dark, and he could see pricks of light shining in the windows of the houses all around him. Carefully, he picked up the black box from the table, carried it to the shed, and put it on the workbench. Then he went out, locked the door behind him, and walked up to the house. Now, in the evening, he went back. He carried the machine to the shed again, kept it, and locked the door, and went to his house. The next morning, Klausner was up as soon as it was light. He dressed and went straight to the shed. He picked up the machine and carried it outside, clasping it to his chest with both hands, walking unsteadily under his weight. He went past the house, out through the front gate, and across the road to the park. There he paused and looked around him. Then he went on until he came to a large tree, a beech tree, and he placed the machine on the ground close to the trunk of the tree. Quickly he went to the house and got an axe from the coal cellar and carried it across the road into the park. He put the axe on the ground beside the tree. Then he looked around him again, peering nervously through his thick glasses in every direction. There was no one about. It was 6 in the morning. The next morning, like a crazy person, Klausner took the machine, clasping it close to his chest, and then he moved to the park which was across the road. There he kept the machine beside a tree. Then he went again back to his house. He took out an axe from the coal cellar storeroom. He took out the axe and then he came back and kept it beside the tree. He was looking all around, but there was no one to help because it was 6 in the morning. He put the earphones on his head and switched on the machine. He listened for a moment to the faint, familiar humming sound. Then he picked up the axe, took a stance with his legs wide apart, and swung the axe as hard as he could at the base of the tree trunk. The blade cut deep into the wood and stuck there. And at the instant of impact, he heard a most extraordinary noise in the earphones. It was a new noise, unlike any he had heard before, a harsh, noteless, enormous noise, a growling, low-pitched, screaming sound, not quick and short like the noise of the roses, but drawn out like a sob, lasting for fully a minute, loudest at the moment when the axe struck, fading gradually fainter and fainter until it was gone. Now he put the earphones, he switched on the machine, then he took a position by stretching his legs apart, and then he just struck the axe on the bark of the tree. The blade of the axe stuck into the tree, and then he heard some different type of noise which he had never heard before, and that was a harsh, noteless, enormous noise, a growling noise as if a sob was there. It was very high when he stuck the axe into the tree trunk, and then gradually and gradually it became fainter and fainter. Klausner stared in horror at the place where the blade of the axe had sunk into the wood flesh of the tree. Now Klausner was very much afraid. In horror, he started looking at the place where the blade of the axe was sunk. Then gently he took axe handle, worked the blade loose and threw the thing on the ground. With his fingers he touched the gash that the axe had made in the wood, touching the edges of the gash, trying to press them together to close the wound. And he kept saying, "Tree, oh tree, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but it will heal fine." Now he in some or the other way, he took out the axe from the tree and he threw it there. Then he looked at the cut of the tree where the axe had put a cut. Something was coming out from it, and then he said that, "I'm so sorry, tree, the wound will be healed soon." For a while he stood there with his hands upon the trunk of the tree. Then suddenly he turned away and hurried off out of the park, across the road, through the front gate, and back into his house. He went to the telephone, consulted the book, dialed a number, and waited. He held the receiver tightly in his left hand and tapped the table impatiently with his right. He heard the telephone buzzing at the other, and then the click of a lifted receiver and a man's voice, a sleepy voice saying, "Hello, yes." "Dr. Scott," he said. "Yes, is speaking." "Dr. Scott, you must come at once, quickly, please." "Who is it speaking?" "Klausner here, and you remember what I told you last night about my experience with sound and how I hoped I might." "Yes, yes, of course, but what's the matter? Are you ill?" "No, I'm not ill, but it's 6:30 in the morning," the doctor said, "and you call me, but you are not ill. Please come quickly. I want someone to hear it. It's driving me mad. I can't believe it." The doctor heard the frantic, almost hysterical note in the man's voice, the same note he was used to hearing in the voices of the people who called up and said, "There's been an accident. Come quickly," he said slowly. "You really want me to get out of the bed and come over now?" Now, first of all, Clausa was standing beside the tree holding that wound. For some time he waited there. Then he quickly crossed the park. Apart from the park, he crossed the road, went to his house. He consulted a telephone book, and then he dialed a number and waited for somebody to pick up the phone. It was Dr. Scott only, to whom he had called up, and he told that, "Doctor, I'm Clausa, and I told you last night also about my experiment, so I want somebody to hear it." Dr. Scott said that it is only 6:30 in the morning. "Are you ill or something?" Then he said, "No, I'm not ill, but you have to come quickly. Please come here." Now, doctor said that, actually the tone in which Clausa was speaking, as if somebody was calling the doctor in emergency, that please come, somebody is ill. So the doctor said, "Do you actually want me to come and leave my bed just right now?" "Yes, now, at once, please." "All right, then I'll come." Clausen sat down beside the telephone and waited. He tried to remember what the shriek of the tree had sounded like, but he couldn't. He could remember only that it had been enormous and frightful, and that it had made him feel sick with horror. He tried to imagine what sort of noise a human would make if he had to stand anchored to the ground while someone deliberately swung a small sharp thing at his leg so that the blade cut in deep and wedged itself in the cut. Same sort of noise, perhaps. No, quite different. The noise of tree was worse than any known human noise because of that frightening toneless, throatless quality. He began to wonder what about other living things, and he thought immediately of a field of wheat standing up straight and yellow and alive with mower going through it, cutting the stems, 500 stems a second, every second. Oh my God, what would that noise be like? So Klausner then waited beside the telephone, and he was trying to recollect the noise of the tree on which he had made a cut, but he couldn't recall. And then he imagined that if some human was to be anchored on the ground, and then somebody with a sharp object would cut his legs and create a deep wound, then how would that person feel? The same way the tree would have felt. But the sound that he heard was something different. It was a frightening, toneless, throatless quality. Actually, the sound that was created at that time when he had cut the tree had made him sick with horror. He was quite frightened from inside. Oh my God, what would that noise be like? 500 wheat plants screaming together. Now he imagined that, if a field of wheat was there, and a field of wheat standing up straight and yellow and alive with mower going over it. If suppose weeds have grown into the field and a mower is moved over them, how would those wheat all together feel like? What would that noise be like? 500 wheat plants screaming together, and every second another 500 being cut and screaming. And no, he thought, I do not want to go to a wheat field with my machine. Then he said, no, no, I will not do this thing. I do not want to go to a wheat field with my machine and hear that voice of the 500 wheat stems all being mowed with the help of a mower, because that would be a terrible sound which I will not be able to bear. I would never eat bread after that. But what about potatoes and cabbages and carrots and onions? And what about apples? Ah, no, apples are all right. They fall off naturally when they are ripe. Apples are all right if you let them fall off instead of tearing them from the tree branch. But not vegetables, not a potato, for example. A potato would surely shriek. So would a carrot and an onion and a cabbage. So he was just imagining things like that. And what about vegetables like potato, cabbage, onion? It would be difficult to just take them from their stems. But apple is all right. It will fall automatically from a tree. That would be okay. He heard the click of the front gate latch and he jumped up and went out and saw the doll doctor coming down. Now, then the doctor had arrived by that time, so he went to receive him and he said that the doctor asked him, what is the trouble that you called me so early? Come with me, doctor. I want you to hear it because you are the only one I have told. It's over the road in the park. Will you come now? Then he said that please come with me to the park, which is across the road, and I'll tell you what had happened. The doctor, he looked at him and he seemed calmer now. There were no signs of madness or hysteria. He was merely disturbed and excited. The doctor observed him quickly and he felt that he was now not looking crazy. He was just serious and you can say disturbed. So they went across the road towards that park where the great beech tree was standing and a black coffin box machine was kept beside it. Why did you bring it out here? The doctor said. I wanted a tree. There aren't any big trees in the garden. And why the axe? You will see in a moment. But now please put on these earphones and listen. Listen carefully and tell me afterwards precisely what you hear. I want to make quite sure. So the doctor said, why have you brought the machine over here? He said that I wanted to experiment with a big tree which is not in my garden. So I came here. Please put on your earphones and whatever I do, please tell me what type of sound you are hearing. So Clausen bent down and flicked the switch on the panel of the machine, then picked up the axe and took his stance with his legs apart, ready to swing. For a moment he paused. Can you hear anything? He said to the doctor. Can I what? Can you hear anything? Just a humming noise. So he asked the doctor presently without any noise, what are you hearing? So he said just a humming sound of the machine. Clausen stood there with an axe in his hands trying to bring himself to swing, but thought of the noise that the tree would make made him pause again. What are you waiting for? The doctor said. Nothing. And then he lifted the axe and swung it at the tree. As he swung, he could swear he felt a movement of the ground on which he stood. He felt a slight shifting of the earth beneath his feet, as though the roots of the tree were moving underneath the soil, but it was too late to check the blow, and the axe blade struck the tree and wedged deep into the wood. At that moment, high overhead, there was a cracking sound of the wood splintering and swishing, sound of leaves brushing against the leaves, and they both looked up, and the doctor cried, watch out, run, man, quickly run. Now, here what happened that Klausner, first of all, he didn't want to swing the axe on that tree, but then the doctor said, what are you waiting for? Then he swung the axe, and immediately he felt as if the earth was moving beneath his feet and the roots of the tree are spreading all around the earth. But before he could notice, it had become too late and the axe had done its work. And above it, the tree, the heavy tree with all the branches and the leaves and all was, you can say, falling. Immediately the doctor said, watch man, run, run, run. The doctor had ripped off the earphones and was running away fast, but Clausen stood spellbound, staring up at the great branch, 60 feet long at least, that was bending slowly downward, breaking and crackling and splintering at its thicket point where it joined the main trunk of the tree. The branch came crashing down, and Klausner leapt aside just in time. It fell upon the machine and smashed it into pieces. Doctor had removed the earphones and he ran out. But Clausen was standing there. He was quite surprised at what is happening. Immediately, a 60 feet high branch of the tree was falling down, and it immediately fell in such a way that it broke the machine, the sound machine that he had created. Great heavens, shouted the doctor as he came running. That was the near one. I thought it had got you. Now the doctor, he came back and he said, "Oh, thank God that you are saved. Otherwise, I thought that you are just near to death." Clausen was staring at the tree. His large head was leaning to one side, and upon his smooth white face there was a tense, horrified expression. Slowly he walked up to the tree and gently he prized the blade loose from the trunk. "Did you hear it?" he said, turning to the doctor. His voice was barely audible. The doctor was still out of the breath from the running and excitement. "Hear what?" "In the earphones. Did you hear anything when the axe struck?" Clausen was just a mad person. He went to the bark of the tree, he removed the axe and asked the doctor, "Did you hear?" The doctor said, "What did I hear?" Then he said that through your earphones when I struck the axe on the tree. The doctor began to rub the back of his neck. "Well, as a matter of fact," he paused and frowned and bit his lower lip. "No, I'm not sure. I couldn't be sure. I didn't suppose I had the earphones on for more than a second after the axe struck." "Yes, yes, but what did you hear?" "I don't know. I don't know what I heard. Probably the noise of the branch breaking." He was speaking rapidly, rather irritably. Now, the doctor naturally had removed the earphones, so he said that I didn't have the earphones for more than a second, but I could only hear the breaking branch. After that, I couldn't hear anything. Mostly, I didn't hear anything, and it was such an irritable sound of the doctor. "What did it sound like?" Klausner leaned forward slightly, staring hard at the doctor. "Exactly what did it sound like?" Klausner was mad. He said, "What did it sound like? What was the sound like that you heard?" "Oh, hell. I really don't know. I was more interested in getting out of the way. Let's leave it." Doctor said, "Please, don't ask me such a question because I was just in chance of saving myself. So don't ask me such a question. Let's leave it." "Dr. Scott, what did it sound like?" He was just mad. He said, "No, tell me, how did it sound like?" "For God's sake, how could I tell, what with half the tree falling on me and having to run for my life?" The doctor certainly seemed nervous. Clausen had sensed it now. He stood quite still, staring at the doctor for fully half a minute. He didn't speak. The doctor moved his feet, shrugged his shoulders, and half turned to go. "Well, we'd better get back." Now, doctor was quite irritated and nervous. He said that, "For heaven's sake, for God's sake, how can I tell you that what I could see? When half the branch of the tree was falling on me, I would naturally save my life or hear the sound." Now, Clausen could sense the nervousness of the doctor, and for half a minute he looked at the doctor. Then the doctor shrugged his shoulders and said that it's better that we go back. "Look," said the little man, and now his smooth white face became suddenly suffused with color. "Look, you stitch this up." He pointed to the last gash that the axe had made in the tree trunk. "You stitch this up quickly." As a mad person, he asked the doctor that please stitch this wound. "You have to stitch this up." "Don't be silly," the doctor said. "You do as I say, stitch it up." Clausen was gripping the axe handle and he spoke softly in a curious, almost a threatening tone. "Don't be silly, I can't stitch through the wood. Come on, let's get back." Now, Clausen was just like a stubborn child. He said, "No, you have to stitch it as I told you," as if he was threatening the doctor. And the doctor said, "I can't stitch up a wood. Don't be silly." "So you can't stitch through the wood?" "No, of course not." "Have you got any iodine in your bag?" "What if I have?" So Clausen said, "Okay, if you can't stitch, do you have any iodine in your bag? Then paint the cut with iodine. It will sting, but that can't be helped." Then he said that please give me the iodine. I will paint the cut with iodine. "Now look," the doctor said, and again he turned as if to go. "Let's not be ridiculous. Let's get back to the house and then paint the cut with iodine." Doctor said, "Please don't be ridiculous. It's just funny. Let's go back." Then he said that please paint the cut with iodine. The doctor hesitated. He saw Clausen's hands tightening on the handle of the axe. He decided that his only alternative was to run away fast, and he certainly wasn't going to do that. "All right," he said. "I'll paint it with iodine." Now, doctor first of all hesitated because he saw that Clausen was tightly holding the axe in his hand. Doctor wanted to go away, but he couldn't do so. Then he said, "Okay, I'm going to paint it with iodine." He got his black bag, which was lying on the grass about 10 yards away, opened it, and took out a bottle of iodine and some cotton wool. He went up to the tree trunk, uncorked the bottle, tipped some of the iodine onto the cotton, and bent down and began to dab it into the cut. He kept one eye on Clausa, who was standing motionless with axe in his hands, watching him. Make sure you get it right in. Yes, the doctor said. Now do the other one, the one just above it. The doctor did as he was told. There you are. It's done. He straightened up and surveyed his work in a very serious manner. That should do nicely. Klausner came closer and gravely examined the two wounds. Yes. Nodding his huge head slowly up and down. Yes, that will do nicely. He stepped back a pace. You will come and look at them again tomorrow. Oh, yes, the doctor said, of course. And put some more iodine on if necessary. Yes, thank you, doctor, Klausner said, and he nodded his head again. And he dropped the axe all at once. He smiled a wild, excited smile, and quickly the doctor went over to him. And gently he took him by the arm and he said, Come on, we must go now. And suddenly they were walking away. The two of them walking silently, rather hurriedly across the park, over the road, back to the house. Now here the doctor, he took his black bag, which was 10 yards away, and he took the iodine and a cotton wool and he dabbed the cotton with iodine, and then he put on the wound of the tree. Then the doctor said, see, now I have done my work and I think this will heal it up. Then Clausen, he came forward and then he said, yes, this will do better to the tree. Then he said to the doctor that you have to come tomorrow again to look at these wounds. And if necessary, put some more iodine tomorrow also. The doctor said, yes, I will definitely do it. And then he held the arm of Klausner, and both of them, they walked away out of the park, and he said that now let's go. So both of them hurriedly moved away from the park across the road. So this way the story has ended, in which we come to know how a crazy person Klausner was, who wanted to hear sounds which were quite low pitched and high pitched, and how they appear to the human ear. So now let's look at the theme of the story. So the story tells us a message, because by the story we come to know that in a way Raul Dahal wants to give us a moral lesson that we should experience the pain of the trees and the plants when they are cut by human beings. So he wants us to stop being deaf to the plants when they are cut, or when in any way we are trying to just harm the plants, the trees for our purpose. It will be because if all the plants and the trees they are cut, naturally we are dependent on them for oxygen. So it's our moral responsibility to look at the greenery and the health of the plants also. So here in this story, Klausner could hear even the slightest cry of a rose being cut by Mrs. Saunders, or he had experienced the cry of the tree when he swung the axe on it, in order to know that what type of cry comes out of those plants. Dr. Scott and Mrs. Saunders, they remain deaf to the pain that the plants experience when they are cut. So, in fact, rational minds of Dr. Scott and Mrs. Saunders stand in contrast to the sensitive mind of Klausner. Now, here the title of the story, Sound Machine, is appropriate because this machine had helped Mr. Klausner to be very sensitive towards the voice of the slightest voice of the rose being cut, or the tree when it was swung with the help of that axe. So we can hear inaudible sounds because he wanted to show that we cannot hear the inaudible sounds which are at a very low pitch or at a very high pitch which human ear cannot bear. But here Klausner, the protagonist of the story, had developed a machine which helped him to listen to such high pitched and low pitched voices, because he believes that all around us is a world of sound also, which human ear cannot hear. So he had made an instrument in order to get in touch with such sounds, because according to him, such low pitched and high pitched voices can be heard by dogs, but not by human ear. And Dr. Scott, his physician, calls on him and he shows interest in the black box which he was working on, and he asks him, due to which Clausa had revealed his secret, that what did he want to make. And he told him about why he was making that machine. So Clausa has a firm belief that plants' vibrations can be heard and their pains felt when they are cut or injured. He has a belief in this theory. And that is why when Mrs. Saunders cuts the stem of a yellow rose, he gets a shrieking sound of that rose. And last of all, when he had cut the tree, the very first time when he had put his struck his axe into the bark of the tree, he could hear the loud or the sobbing sound of the tree when it was cut. And he could feel the pain that the tree could have. And he tried to put his hand on the liquid that was coming out of the tree, as if the tree was bleeding. So he could feel the pain that the tree was undergoing at that moment. So hope this story is clear to you all, and if you have understood it, you can press the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.